Hey guys, it's Josh. Today I want to talk about the ransomware mid game. I've been thinking about this for a while, and we have some new and interesting content that I want to show you. So, the ransomware mid game has really been developed by the fact that ransomware is growing so quickly. It's gone from the very beginning for a quick buck all the way up to the more pain, the more game, which you've seen in Dark Side, with Colonial Pipeline attack, Connie ransomware, any number of those things. It's only continuing to grow. It's costly to do backups. They're super important. It's still part of it. Insurance is basically getting really hard to get. Zero trust is obviously somewhere we want to go, but it's extremely hard to implement. And so what do you do in the meantime, or those areas where it can't be implemented? And then prevention is really a dream that we all need to strive for, but we all know it's not an if, but when in these type of scenarios. And what happens when that post-compromise happens? That's when we're here and we've got target enumeration and lateral movements and all these really great detections to be able to associate with that. But where is our strength? Until now, I haven't really put my finger on it, put my pulse on it. What's the strength of what we do? And it lies in this mid-game post-compromise. And really what does that mean? So what it means is we are building walls in the security industry. And that is the initial intrusion, phishing, CVEs that you're going after. Everyone's building walls. I'm going to talk more about that. But what the important part is, once you get past that wall, which you will as an attacker, or someone's going to click a phishing link, what do? You're going to do domain escalation, lateral movement, command and control, target enumeration, and data staging. That is where ExtraHop's strength lies, is that mid game. And our time is now, because this is where we're actually going to be super powerful. We've been building walls for years, brick by brick by brick, and we're putting budget in for these things. Let's put some more bricks in the wall. Guess what? The walls are breached, right? It's important to have those, but that's only part of the strategy. You need to be able to understand what happens inside your castle. So I'm over the wall. Now I need to put some cameras up to see what's going on. We need to see where it's going when you're getting that treasure chest. And then obviously the end game is that breach. So let's talk a little bit more about this mid-game post-compromise concept, right? Don't shoot me. This is a super corny graphic, but I think it's useful when I was trying to frame and think about this. And I'm going to do a little bit of a John Madden here for you here. So we keep building bigger walls, right? So this is what we keep doing. And what are we doing that with? We're doing those with more firewalls, which you absolutely need. We're doing that with EDR agents, which are fantastic. We need things like, Microsoft Defender and CrowdStrike, but you can't put an agent everywhere and you can't put a firewall between everything. We're going to do things like logging everything with the SIM. Super important. But if logs are dropped, if you don't have that thing to being logged, if your collectors aren't having, if you don't have the budget for logs, that's very difficult. These are all things that you still probably need. But the reality is it's not covering the true problem, which is that ransomware mid-game. Old school stuff like IDS and IPS is just no longer cutting it for a number of reasons: scalability, encryption, the depth of those products. And then this new concept of what we would call SOAR, or, a lot of times like XDR likes to play here from a marketing perspective, that security orchestration and response. It's very, very cool stuff, but it's only as good as the data you send it, right? And so if you're sending it SIEM data, EDR data, firewall data, and I've hopped this wall, what are you sending it? You're sending it nothing, right? It's not useful at that point. So we've got to have a better way of doing that. And that's looking at this from a different perspective. That's this mid-game play. And that's where ExtraHop's always been really strong. And now we're stepping into our boots and we're putting on our cape and we're becoming that superhero, because the time is now for us to really take on that mid game. So traditional stuff is going to go north, south. And that's what we're talking about up here. And I'm not saying we're replacing that stuff. You still absolutely need that. You still need a fence on a jail, right? You don't want the prisoners to get out, but you also need to understand where they're moving inside there. You still need a wall. But make that wall 12 feet high, not 80 feet high. Making the wall bigger doesn't make it so the prisoners are going to stay in longer, right? Or doesn't make it so that people aren't going to escape, right? You build it up to a standard, and then you start to look at, how do I mitigate my risks through layers? And that's where we come in. Because once you get across the wall, I'm going to go after your database servers, your Linux virtual servers, which a lot of times we don't have EDR agents for. I'm going to go after your app servers. I'm going to go after AD and DNS, Windows servers, web servers, because I've breached the wall. And guess what? None of these tools do which we spend in the initial phase. These are all initial phase tools. We spend the vast majority of our security budget on firewalls, EDR, SIMs, IDS and IPS, and source. And those are all developed to make your wall bigger or to take in data from people that are building walls. We don't want to build walls. We want to see what happens when I jump that wall and I'm inside your infrastructure. And maybe I'm in a Linux server that doesn't have the latest agent because EDR agents are majorly built for Windows services. Maybe on a mainframe, they can't take an agent. Maybe in my infrastructure, the DevOps team is against agents because they can't run anymore because it's taking away too much CPU. So they've compromised security in order to get more throughput of their production. There's any number of reasons. But what I'm doing as an attacker is I'm moving east-west. When I do that, I'm doing detections like DC sync attack, database staging, bloodhound enumeration. We have hundreds of those. These tools up above aren't looking for those because they're only looking for the initial phase. We look at it post-compromise, pre-breach, and that's where the mid-game is. That's where the mid-game plays. And so because we're looking at that east-west traffic, we can start to give you deeper context-driven insights of what's happening on that corridor. So now I've breached you. Guess what? Every time that one of these comes out, like Connie, ransomware, DarkSide, Log4j, Log4j, Log4Shell, they all are using the same mid-game techniques. So everyone's struggling to write these detections for SolarWinds and Log4j, Log4Shell, which we do too. We have those great detections and we need those. But what do they all have in common? They all use the same mid-game detection techniques. They're going to do Bloodhound, Memicats. They're going to look for databases, AD servers. They're going to go wherever they possibly can. And we already have tried and true years of intelligence and threat research into how that mid-game works. And every one of these compromises, time and time again, uses the same ways to be able to attack you once they do the initial phase, once they've reached the mid-game, and we can detect that. And not only can we detect that, we can do it with decryption. So we can actually decrypt and see what's inside that Kerberos golden ticket attack. We can decrypt it and see what's inside those CIF files or those Log4j, Log4Shell, SSL transactions that are even running at TLS 1.3. We can decrypt that. So in conclusion, it's not good enough anymore to do SIM and EDR and firewall and IDS and IPS and spend more and more and more money building your wall as high as you possibly can. You need to look at it from a different perspective and take a step back. I need to build my wall. But once my wall is breached, what do I do? And that's where the mid-game comes in. You have to have eyes on the inside of your infrastructure, on the prize, inside your cloud services, inside your data center services to see what people are doing when an advanced attack persists in your enterprise. Cool. Thanks for taking the time. Really appreciate it.